success and failure can be measured in fractions of a point. Three gentlemen, nay, heroes, have put aside their differences to combine forces and produce the greatest fantasy football draft kit of all time. From the creative minds behind the fantasy footballers comes a blockbuster multimedia extravaganza. Video profiles, stat projections, tier breakdowns, printable cheat sheets, rookie rankings, sleepers, busts, and so much more. Mike Wright calls it the one draft tool you can't miss. Andrew Holloway says it's changed his life. And Jason Moore said, when I saw all the content in the Ultimate Draft Kit, I fell to my knees and wept. I wept like a baby. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to www.ultimatedraftkit.com today and secure your copy today.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from Draft.com Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Tuesday, August 14th.
A date that shall live in infamy.
I woke up, it was just an ordinary morning. Just like any old morning.
Was for me as well.
And then the earth shook beneath my feet as news broke. Whew! Walter Cronkite came on the news.
Came across the wire.
And, let's just...
Oh!
The man of the people.
Yes!
Is now the man of the blue check mark.
America! I am now the verified man of the people.
Oh, that is... We assumed you'd go with that, Mike.
Don't worry. I still love all of you beautiful people. I'm just a little bit better than you now.
Does it feel like one or two Mike Tolberts just fell off your back?
Oh, man. You have no idea.
I will say this. So this has been years in the making. We've talked about it
There may be new
forever.
listeners that have no idea what we're talking about now.
Andy, myself have been Twitter verified for a while, for a long while.
It's helped our self-esteem.
Oh, man.
It's helped us relationally.
Huge false sense of security came to me personally. And Mike has been left in the dust, always been the man of the people was his moniker because he was unverified swine.
Oh. Yeah, but there were many things he was called over the last 2 years.
No longer. And I was asked, how did it feel when I got the news? And I said, embarrassingly better than it should have.
This is where I was going. Is that when you walked in this morning, I have never, ever seen you as happy. Not when
we've been around when your children were born. We've been around when big days.
You had a glow on your face that shall not soon leave.
His chest was puffed out.
Feels good, man. Feels good.
He was shooting DMs to other verified people.
Mike, let me just say this. Welcome to the team.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We have, the fireworks. They just keep going.
Brooks is now the man of the people.
Brooks is now the man of the people.
Heavy as the head, Brooks.
Oh, my gosh. Heavy as the weight on the back.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Just imagine the analysis, Mike, the Fantasy Hitman is going to bring you.
Yeah, it's a great day for Hitmen everywhere, really.
What was I was following you tweeted this morning, and I think it's up over 2,000 likes. Because this has been a journey that you've taken everybody on.
This is true.
And
many Foot Clan they're with me. I mean, I'm getting, of course, the trolls are out saying no, this shouldn't happen. But I would say the overwhelming majority of people, I feel like I feel like a proud father, a proud mother right now.
The Foot Clan are good people. So I mean, that's the thing. This show, we're a positive show, and the people who enjoy this show are positive, awesome people. They're happy for you. I'm happy for you. And
yeah, we have a great show.
Let's move on.
We have a great actual show for you today. Wide receiver rankings part 2. We're going to get through as many names as we can. Some news we need to break down for sure. We're going to get into the Foot Clan mailbag, answer some questions, help you win your league, help you get ready for your fantasy drafts. They're coming quickly. We even have Keep Trade Cut on the show today, so I have a feeling it's going to be a little bonus in terms of length on the show today. Follow us all on Twitter, but you can follow Mike, who's super verified, at FF Hitman.
You know it's me.
Jason is at JasonFFL. I'm at Andy Holloway. The show is at the FF Ballers.
Also verified.
Yeah, that's new too. So I mean, it only took years and years and years of being on television and
touring the country.
Yeah, they said, you know what? You are who you said you are. Little Denny Green.
Ooh,
got to bring him back.
I got a Denny Green in the mentions.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into the quick question.
Keep Trade Cut.
We're going to play some Keep Trade Cut on the quick question of the day. Wide receiver, Keep Trade Cut. Robert Woods of the Rams. Kelvin Benjamin of the Bills. Sterling Shepard of the Giants. Currently being drafted all in that 9th, 10th round range. Keep Trade Cut, Robert Woods, Kelvin Benjamin, Sterling Shepard, boys.
I'm going to keep Kelvin Benjamin out of this group. I want the guy that I know is the one on the team. I don't expect the Bills' passing offense to be prolific, but he seems like right now in preseason, at least against his former team, playing with a chip on his shoulder, looked good. I am going to trade Sterling Shepard to Brooks.
Wow.
Because I know how much Brooks values, nay, overvalues Sterling Shepard. I'm a big Sterling Shepard fan, so I'm going to cut Robert Woods. But in truth, I do think Robert Woods has a better season than Sterling Shepard.
I am going to do the exact same thing. I thought I might stand alone on Kelvin, but I am rising and have been raising him in ranks. I'm going to trade away. I'll probably trade away Robert Woods. And I'll have to cut Shepard. I think Shepard will have a better season than Woods, actually. When you have Odell Beckham Jr. on the opposite side of you, when you have to come up in the box to stop Saquon Barkley, I think Shepard is going to be the beneficiary of a lot of beautiful coverage, and he's got the talent to exploit it.
Certainly. It is very strange that I believe that Woods will have the better season, but I'm going to trade Shepard. You believe Shepard will have the better season, but you're going to trade...
I think the perception is Woods, and the draft position of Woods is a round and a half higher. So
I guess that makes sense.
I think that's why I'm going to trade Woods.
And even though Woods is currently ranked the highest of these three wide receivers for me, I do need to go in and make some adjustments. I'm going to swallow the garbage, as they say, and I'm going to keep Kelvin Benjamin because I'm with Jason. He's the one. Woods. Like I said, right now, Woods is projected to have the better season, but at this point of the draft, 9th, 10th round, I don't want a guy who can just maybe fill in for me every once in a while at the wide receiver position. I'm going to go for a one. Kelvin Benjamin can be a touchdown machine. We've seen it before. And then I'm going to trade Robert Woods because I like him more than Shepard, and I think that his trade value in the current market, it would be higher.
If Kelvin could play the Panthers 16 games this year, he might be in my top 10. I think he's got that kind of fire for Cam right now. All right, we're going to get into the news. A reminder, you can go to draft.thefantasyfootballers.com if you want to do a mock draft and then get a grade from us. It's a fun way to practice. Draft.thefantasyfootballers.com. And then FootClanGiveaway.com, we're giving away the DeAndre Hopkins jersey, a couple copies of Madden, and a UDK for life.
For life!
And I believe yesterday we confirmed you can bequeath it.
Ooh.
Okay? You can bequeath it to your next of kin because we're doing this for a long time. That's why we tell them to subscribe. It's a 40 to 50-year commitment to this podcast.
Forever.
News and notes from around the league.
I'm going to try to fly through these so we can get into the rankings. You guys let me know what's relevant. Devontae Parker has a broken middle finger, hopefully ready by the opener. Devontae Parker, I've faded him all off season. I felt the pressure to love him, and I don't. So
the targets were there.
This doesn't help.
The targets were absolutely there. He was one of those guys that left, as I've said on the show, a lot of meat on the bone. His targets to fantasy finish, there's a huge discrepancy there. But this is great news for Kenny Stills, who has always been a favorite of Jason and mine. But it's also big news for Albert Wilson, who received a sizable contract. The Miami Dolphins say Albert Wilson's going to play on the outside. This opens a starting role for Albert Wilson, who simply may not give it back to Devontae Parker.
The news has not been good about Kalen Ballage, running back for the Miami Dolphins lately either. He got kicked out of the huddle by Ryan Tannehill, and now he's in the concussion protocol after a fumble in his opening
I didn't hear
preseason
about
game.
The concussion.
So it's been a – if you wanted an opportunity for him to kind of break into the rotation, some people have him as a big-time sleeper. I think that there's opportunity there. This is just a negative start to the season.
Yeah, it's not gone well. Hashtag not surprised.
Yeah, with the concussion, you're not surprised?
No, with the fumble, with the pass protection, all that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be behind Drake and Gore, certainly, to start the season. There hadn't been news on Eagles wide receiver Nelson Aguilar's injury. They're saying it's lower body and that they're just resting him to start the season. Eagles wide receiver Alshon Jeffery, news broke yesterday. He could start on the PUP, which would cost him 6 games. So this is huge.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about the fact, or at least I have, that Alshon Jeffery, without the touchdowns, he's not going to give you a fantasy season you're proud of. You have other weapons there in the offense, and now you've got a PUP risk. I stay away from Alshon.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I've had concerns with the offense. You've got to also throw in the fact that Carson Wentz was just recently talking about he's not sure he's going to be ready for week 1. That's not completely on him. The doctors have to – I mean, we talked about when the injury happened and the timeline for his specific injury, which was worse than what Deshaun Watson went through from a medical standpoint, that the timetable for recovery would put him right around week 1. And what happened is training camps, OTAs came, and you saw video of him on the field throwing a football, and you're like, oh, he's already fine. And that's a world different than being out there running, utilizing his legs, taking hits, things of that nature. So, yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles' offense right now as a whole is a little scary. You lose your offensive coordinator, you lose your quarterback's coach, you might not have your starting quarterback or your number 1 wide receiver. I think it gives a bump to Mike Wallace.
I was going to say, I mean, even if, let's say Carson Wentz is ready, he's being drafted as, the 4th or 5th quarterback in fantasy drafts, and if his number 1 wide receiver starts the year on the PUP
and Aguilar
six games,
is still, mysteriously injured.
Right. Can Mike Wallace fill the void of Alshon Jeffery? It was a couple shows ago, Jason, you talked about Mike Wallace game speed is still top end.
He's still very fast, was fast last season.
He still has it. And so you got Mike Wallace, who already projected to be a starting outside wide receiver. Now you might have that second spot open to either Marcus Wheaton or last year rookie Mac Hollins.
Okay, let's jump into Alfred Morris. He was signed by the San Francisco 49ers yesterday.
Through his mouth?
What did I say?
You said jump into Alfred Morris. That needs a. I mean, that was bad, Mike.
I told you, I'm not a different person. I am who I am.
Your verification check mark will be be gone by the end of the day. That would be.
Oh, man.
You would not exist.
I'm gonna go into his Twitter profile, change his handle.
Oh man. All right. So Alfred Morris, signed by the 49ers, had Twitter buzzing for. I think it's more of a non-story than people are giving it credit for. The ideal situation, what they want, is McKinnon, Burita, and the rest. And Morris,
that's what they want,
right? And right now, though, we still expect it to be McKinnon and Burita in week 1. We expect them both to be healthy and active. This is an insurance policy to me. This is going out and finding a guy that Alfred Morris has found reps because of injury over the last 2 years, but that's the only reason he's found reps. I'm not worried about it. I don't go out and sign Alfred Morris. I don't draft Alfred Morris.
Right.
But I would sign him if I was in a dynasty league. If you've got a deep roster.
And I will say this: so, like the Rolling Stones said, you can't always get what you want, so you get what you need. And Alfred Morris, there's some history there with K. Shy, so I think this was a great move by the 49ers, but it was a depth move. It does, however, you need to keep a close eye. Keep that eagle eye on McKinnon and Burita, their status.
Yeah, sometimes when they sign depth, it says something about the way they're predicting or projecting their players' health, or at least that there's a percentage chance that Burrito's not ready for week 1,
or into
that type of thing.
And to the backups. I mean, for the Joe Williams truthers out there, running back they signed or they drafted this past season, it speaks against him for me. Yeah.
That would have been the Twitter notification sound that came through when he saw the signing.
Yeah, he can't be pleased.
All right. I want to read the full quote by Buccaneers coach Dirk Cutter about Peyton Barber. The quote that circulated was, "Peyton is our starter."
Right.
The full quote is, "We're definitely going to use Ronald Jones and take advantage of what he's going to do. We have 2 veteran backs behind him. Again, we've got 3 more preseason games. Let's just let it sort out a little more."
Right.
On a live stream yesterday, I was asked about the Peyton Barber-Ronald Jones situation. Now, mind you, new information, you make adjustments, you make tweaks. Over the last week, I've adjusted Peyton Barber up a little bit, Ronald Jones down a little bit, because Peyton Barber had a very nice preseason game, and he ran with the first team the entirety, I think first 10 plays, something like that. I still have been preaching this. Wait a couple weeks, Next week, if Ronald Jones busts 2 40-yard runs, people are going to overreact and swing the pendulum the other direction.
Some people are drafting right now, though, so they have to react today.
Yes, they do. But if you have the opportunity to wait and see for 2-3 preseason games, great. If you don't, I think Ronald Jones, look, talent wins. I think by the middle of the season, I still think Ronald Jones
Peyton Barber is going to be the starter?
No. To start the season, he will. But talent-wise, Ronald Jones is much more talented than Peyton Barber.
Ronald Jones,
it's obvious.
If Ronald Jones, to me, is a trade target for later in the draft, like I talked about a couple shows ago.
How do you mean?
As in, I'm not drafting Ronald Jones. I lean more with Jason on the side of Ronald Jones could be a bust for the NFL with his lack of ability in the passing game. But if he's splitting first and down work with a veteran of Peyton Barber, I agree, Ronald Jones has more juice as an NFL player, but Peyton Barber is still an okay running back. And sometimes in the NFL, when you're a veteran, okay gets the job done. So, and you have
Rob Kelly's motto.
Yeah, the first 3 games are against tough opponents. The first 3 games, they do not have their starting quarterback, Jameis Winston.
Could be tough sledding.
So the people who spend that 5th round or even 4th round pick on Ronald Jones, by the end of week 3, I think they're going to be panicked. And then if you believe in Ronald Jones, that's when I would try to acquire him.
I can get behind that for sure. One other piece of news had people freaked out yesterday, but Saquon Barkley. Is it a hamstring? A mild strain? A leg injury. So they're going to take it easy on Saquon before the season. I don't know if you're going to see him again. I would imagine you don't.
I hope not. I mean, with a hamstring or any kind of soft tissue issue in the legs.
People were big fans of that phrase yesterday, Jason.
Yeah.
It is the hamstring. It is the hamstring. They're going to be smart. Pat Shurmur said they're going to be smart with their star. It looks like, he'll be ready for week 1. There you go. I want to talk about wide receivers. We're going to do that. We're going to do the wide receiver breakdown. We're going to get through as many more names. Yesterday we had the top 10 wide receivers by our consensus rankings, and so we're going to continue that today. Before we do, I want to thank FanDuel. It's been a long off season without FanDuel, but FanDuel has spent it getting into the best shape of their lives.
They're hitting that bench.
Yeah, that means that FanDuel's ready for more in 2018, more ways to play, more ways to challenge your friends, more ways to win. If you're not a fantasy expert, FanDuel is still clearly the best place to play. All types of contests for casual fans. They got these beat the score contests. They pay out everyone who hits a certain score. I like that concept. All you have to do is finish in the money to split an equal share of the cash. Right now, you can get a $10 bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. You just sign up at FanDuel.com/footballers. That's FanDuel.com/footballers. Best of all, FanDuel is doing their part to make the preseason bearable with preseason fantasy contests running up to week 1 of the NFL. So you can get started now. Don't forget age and state restrictions apply. That's FanDuel.com/footballers.
We want to thank Pristine Auction for sponsoring today's show. Pristine Auction, the absolute go-to place for all of your sports memorabilia needs. This is where we get our autographed jerseys. I never worry about the authenticity of the autograph. They use the best certifiers in the business, JSA, etc. And there are deals. There are deals on Pristine Auction every single day.
Deals and steals, baby.
And I'm not talking just a couple of new items every day. Hundreds of new items every single day. I'm looking at it right now. I'm taking a little peek ski of what we might be able to add to the Fantasy Footballers headquarters. Also want to run through some of these deals I talked about that people were getting just yesterday. A Le'Veon Bell signed Steelers throwback jersey, $67. An Antonio Gates signed Chargers mini helmet, $59. Signed Kareem Hunt jersey, $68. Woo. Head over to Pristine Auction, PRISTINE auction.com. Make a completely free account. You let them know that the Fantasy Footballers sent you.
Wide receivers.
All right, let's jump right into the wide receiver rankings, part 2. Number 11 in our consensus rankings, it's Amari Cooper.
Yes.
Oh, he's so popular as a breakout candidate each and every year. I have him at 10. Mike, you got him at 11. Jason, 12. We all agree.
You must have recently bumped Amari Cooper
I did
up.
recently bump him up.
Because I liked my 11 ranking, and I was king of the mountain. I was king of the Amari Cooper rankings.
I made some adjustments. I did. And
I'm moving him to 9.
Last year, I had 96 targets. That only turned into 48 receptions.
It was a terrible year for him.
Let's not talk about last year. Let's not do it. Let's talk about this year.
No, you got to talk about last year before you talk about this year.
So
31% of his season total receiving yards came in Week 7. 31% last year.
Was that?
It was a good week, though.
The Chiefs game?
I believe so.
His contested catch conversion rate, according to Matt Harmon from Reception Perception, he's in the UDK. You can figure this out. This is not good. It's the lowest ever recorded.
Yeah, it was a bad year for Amari Cooper. Quarterback for the Raiders, Derek Carr, has said on a few occasions that Amari Cooper was hurt far worse than he let on and that people were told about. I want to believe that because Amari Cooper is in such a good situation. John Gruden, if he brings back the offense that he ran whenever he was a coach in the NFL about 20 years ago, it was a very long time, but his wide receiver ones and his running back ones, they always came through with huge fantasy production. Amari Cooper is talented. That is not a question. He is a physically gifted NFL wide receiver. His hands, questionable. To bring when you have the lowest contested catch rate of all time in the reception perception, your hands have to be questioned. The touchdown upside.
He's just got to open them. He's keeping them closed.
Yeah,
they're more like
maybe
this.
It's really impressive when he does catch the ball with no fingers.
He has said it's too easy. Football is too easy, so I'm going to try and just catch with no fingers.
The reality
that's the problem
for Cooper, like you said, he's a physical talent. 4.42 speed at 211 pounds. His weight-adjusted speed is fantastic. That's why he was drafted so high in the NFL draft. Rookie season, he comes out, he's great. He's the 22nd best wide receiver in fantasy football. Then his sophomore year, he's the 13th best, almost a wide receiver 1. So sky's the limit. And then last year had a down year. But like you said, he was injured. Carr was dealing with injury all year. The entire Raiders offense fell apart. Michael Crabtree was the one. Now
Michael Crabtree is gone now.
Michael Crabtree is gone. Cooper and Carr are healthy. The offense, the coach comes in and says, we're going to center this around Amari Cooper, a 24-year-old physical freak. If he doesn't get it done this year, I would be super surprised.
If it was just Cooper last year and Carr had a great season and Crabtree had a great season, I brought it up. Crabtree had 7 metrics that plummeted last year. This was an offensive problem through and through. I want to say I believe in Derek Carr. I'm the only one of this group that has him ranked anywhere outside the top 25, but I got him at 15 because I think he's going to matter again this year and is going to be on the back of Amari Cooper, Jordy Nelson and company. I think, look, that's not a top 12. That's not a draftable quarterback, but you're going to care about Derek Carr at different times this year the way you did 2 years ago.
I will say it is troubling to me on a personal level how much I believe in Amari Cooper and Marshawn Lynch this year.
I traded for Marshawn yesterday after
You're darn right.
After you came and showed me that 60-yard jaunt.
Beast mode is going to be beastly, and Amari Cooper is going to be a wide receiver 1.
And he's a good value right now in drafts. I mean, he's going behind Tyreek Hill. He's going almost in the 4th round. 312 right now is where he's going in PPR leagues. That's a great value, 16th wide receiver off the board.
I'm moving on to number 12, and I'm aghast when I look at the weekly breakdown of this player's fantasy finishes last season.
Merry Christmas!
T.Y. Hilton is coming in at number 12 in our consensus rankings, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. I have him at 9. Jason and Mike have him at 14. And last season was it was like he was in the deepest part of the ocean and he'd put his head up 4 times over the course of the year.
And he got big breaths when he came. He came up.
Oh, yeah. And then he went back down because, look, Andrew Luck was not there. Week 3, he was the 5th wide receiver in fantasy. Week 5, he was the 4th. Week 9, he was the 1st. But in between, 57, 48, 73, 76, 63, 61, 76,
he was consistent.
88.
I mean, this is not – you're not even touching relevance. You might as well be on the bench those weeks. Those were – atrocious.
This is last year for T.Y. Hilton, and I'm not trying to hold too much against Hilton for this, but that is the absolute worst thing that can happen to your fantasy team is that week 3 and 5, because then you keep playing T.Y. Hilton, who
for week 6, 7, and 8 when he was 76, 63, 61.
Yes.
Then you finally bench him for week 9 when he's the number 1 wide receiver.
He just keeps making you believe. Hopefully you made T.Y. Hilton somebody else's problem this past year, but we're back. Andrew Luck is back. He's got a new mustache.
Does he really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's mustachio over there in Indianapolis.
Got to move him up.
The last time T.Y. Hilton played with Andrew Luck, he led the league in receiving yards. He was the wide receiver 5. There is reason to believe that T.Y. Hilton should be back to being a fantasy relevant wide receiver, but that's now baked into his average draft position where he's going at the very beginning of the 3rd round. So you're paying basically full price now for T.Y. Hilton. The values are gone.
Yeah, that's my issue with him. I do think that you're paying near the ceiling. I realized 2 years ago when he had Andrew Luck, led the league,
right.
He was the number 5 wide receiver. So maybe there's slight room for improvement ahead of that number 10 draft position. But I think the risk-reward is the reward is pretty much you get value at where you drafted him. The risk is still pretty high if anything happens with Luck.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If something happens with Luck, sure.
That's where I'm baking in the risk.
Yeah, and that's going to go with obviously any main wide receiver. The quarterback goes down. Luck obviously has more of a history with the injury.
Yeah,
but I don't think there's any world. Do any of us believe that he can finish outside the top 20 with Andrew Luck healthy?
No way.
I don't think it's a possibility.
If you look at his career, over 1,083 yards, 1,345, 1,124, 1,448. He's over 1,000 yards every year with Luck. He's been pretty consistent with him. If Luck is healthy this season, he's definitely not outside the top 20 wide receiver.
I think there's a good chance that Hilton's in the top 5 in yardage again this year with Luck, and so it's just a matter
to speak to the ADP though. Here, let's play. Would you draft T.Y. Hilton or this other player? Because these are guys that are currently going behind Hilton in ADP on Fantasy Football Calculator. T.Y. Hilton or Stefon Diggs?
Hilton.
Adam Thielen.
I'll take a Hilton.
Doug Baldwin.
Hilton
right now because of the injury.
Larry Fitz.
Hilton.
Okay. I'll give you 2 more. Tyreek Hill.
Hilton.
Amari Cooper.
I have to say Hilton.
Wow. You are very in on T.Y. Hilton.
I am. He's at number 9. All right, let's move on. Number 13, Mike Evans. Oh, we give him no respect. That's all I hear. Number 13 on our consensus, that's where Jason has him. Mike at 14. I got him at 15. Last season was an up-and-down year. He had some of those weeks, the Hilton-esque weeks where he disappeared. Weeks 3, 5, 9, 13, and 14. He was pretty bad, outside the top 38 in all those weeks. Didn't have the volume on target-wise. I believe he dropped from the 170s to the 130s. Starts this season with 3 games. Sands, Jameis Winston, a very difficult opening schedule, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, then Chicago. Mike Evans' ceiling is it up there at number 2 where he was in 2016, or is it lower?
Oh, I would say his ceiling is wide receiver 5. Things work out on the back of touchdowns and usage in the red zone. He could absolutely finish there. The issue with him, with projecting him there, is that when he finished number 2, he was the guy and there was no other worthy target. The only guy remotely serviceable then was basically Cameron Brate, a tight end. You're talking about Mike Evans was the show. Now they have their best total core of receivers. Not only is Cameron Brate still there, you have O.J. Howard, Chris Godwin getting on the field, Deshaun Jackson is there. So for Mike Evans to bounce back to that, where he's getting 150 to 170 targets is probably not going to happen.
He needs 15 touchdowns to do it.
Exactly. So volume is what we try to.
15.
Well, he needs a lot. He needs
10,
12
10
touchdowns.
Yes, which is very possible for Mike Evans this past season.
Had 12 touchdowns, 2 years.
Of players with 19 or more red zone targets, there were 20 players. Only 3 players had a catch rate of under 40%. Adam Thielen, Mike Evans, Julio Jones. 3 guys who were very disappointing when it came to touchdowns. He was tied for this is Julio Jones I was talking about. But Evans, 19 targets inside the 20, 5 touchdowns, 5 receptions, a catch rate of 26%. That won't get it done. But the previous years where Mike Evans has the high touchdown total, it's because that connection is working. That's one of those variance things that could easily swing back to Mike Evans' favor. So his ceiling is still a top 8 wide receiver. I think he's going to see a positive regression in the touchdown area, but I don't see him as a top 5 wide receiver.
All right, number 14 is Stefon Diggs. I am really surprised at the visceral reactions and arguments and thoughts about Diggs and Thielen and who's going to be better. Like, people they've chosen a side here. This is something profound that I've seen out there. And look, Stefon Diggs is a great player, but when you look at the game log for last year, it didn't translate into a lot of weeks where he contributed to your fantasy team. He's never had a season where he's finished inside the top 19, or he was 19 last year, but he's never had a wide receiver 1 season yet. He's had injury problems. There have been some warts to Stefon Diggs' game in the last few years, and I know that we all believe in the upside. Mike, you have him at 12, so you believe this is going to be his first wide receiver 1 season. But I just don't understand why people want to hand it to him so easily.
Right. And
is it one preseason game?
I get that. You have to factor in injuries for Stefon Diggs. 13 games played, 13 games, 14. And that doesn't factor in the games that he actually plays, but he's still banged up, so he's not as efficient as...
Or gets injured and leaves.
Sure. So you have to think about those things for Stefon Diggs. But the talent is incredible. He's playing with the best quarterback that he has ever had in the NFL with Kirk Cousins. So I think that's where projecting the upside comes, is the talent, new upgrade at quarterback. So I like Stefon Diggs to finish right around that edge as a low-end wide receiver 1 or high-end wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I've got him right in the middle of the wide receiver 2. He's obviously a great talent when he's on the field.
What's his upside for you, Jason?
So for me, I think if he has a phenomenal season, plays the whole season, I think he could be like the wide receiver 10. That I don't see him as one of those top 5 capable guys. He definitely can finish a week as the number 1 wide receiver. He's a beast in that way, but the injuries and the amount of times he leaves the field, they are real. I don't know.
Let's get him 80 receptions. Can we do that, Kirk?
Right. I mean, I don't know that he's injured or not. This is, fresh, but he's, his practice today, he was found not wearing pads. So he's not, it's just one of those, maybe they're resting him.
Right.
That's great. Maybe he's just dinged up again because it's kind of what he does. I remember going into last year believing, because he was putting on weight, he was focused on the injury risk, he was wanting to play 16, just couldn't do it. I have a hard time giving him 16 solid, healthy games.
Okay. Let's move on. Number 15 is Doug Baldwin. Well, it's just health. It's just health.
100%.
This is one of those players that is going to yo-yo a bit in the rankings based on where we're, whether we think he's going to be out there week 1, whether we think he's 100% or he's going to have to fight through injury for 3 or 4 weeks. He starts on the road against Denver, on the road against Chicago. Those are not, matchups that I'm in love with, but he is the number 1 target for Russell Wilson. He does have a very high ceiling, and when plays break down, he's the guy Wilson goes to. He's had some very, very good seasons. 2015, the 8th best fantasy wideout. 2016, he was the 10th best. 2017, he was the 13th best. This is a great player who simply needs to be healthy and on the field to get the volume of targets that we're talking about.
I am 100% willing to take the risk on Doug Baldwin. He is dropping fast in drafts, and as the preseason goes and he sits out, he's going to continue to drop. He's almost at the 4th round now. And so if I'm looking at 4th round wide receivers, JuJu Smith-Schuster and Jarvis Landry, guys that I like them. They're okay. But Doug Baldwin, JuJu could bust just as easily as Doug Baldwin could become injured. But Doug Baldwin's upside, I think this year with Jimmy Graham having left, with Paul Richardson gone.
I was just going to say, Jimmy Graham, 96 targets. Paul Richardson, 80 targets. No, that doesn't mean 170 targets extra are going to Doug Baldwin.
It means you'd start drafting Tyler Lockett late in draft.
But they're certainly not going to Jerron Brown, the replacement.
Right.
Yeah. So we're waiting and seeing. I think that if you are basically – who's going around him in drafts right now? I want to ask that question because
I can give you some names. So right now he is sandwiched between Adam Thielen and Larry Fitzgerald.
Right. And is there any
would
scenario
you take
where
Doug Baldwin or Larry Fitzgerald right now?
I would take Larry.
Wow.
I think I would take Doug.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would go Larry personally. Yeah. But I'm with Jason that I am absorbing the risk of Doug Baldwin because the upside of Doug Baldwin is a top 5 wide receiver.
But right now you don't have to absorb it. Right now you can draft Thielen or Fitz or Hill or Cooper.
Sure.
Would you draft Baldwin or Hill? I think I would take Baldwin.
I would take Baldwin.
Okay. Cooper or Baldwin?
That one
right now.
Tough. I would go Cooper.
Yeah,
right now with
Cooper.
The injury to Doug Baldwin.
Yep.
All right, number 16 is Demaryius Thomas. It was a year that he faced challenges at the quarterback position. He still received the 10th most targets in the NFL. He had a much stronger second half of the season, much more consistent second half of the season. Right now his average draft position is the 4th pick of the 4th round. And we expect Demaryius Thomas to be better because we expect Case Keenum to be more consistent than the quarterbacks that he's had over the last few years.
Yeah, for Demaryius Thomas last year, it was efficiency. It was quarterback play. The average gap of top 20 wide receivers when you talk about where they finished in target total to where they finished in fantasy points this past season, it was just under 2 positions, meaning that the wide receiver who got the 6th most targets, they're going to finish right around there in fantasy finish. Of the guys in the top 20 of targets, only Dez Bryant and Demaryius Thomas had a negative gap of 10, meaning his quarterbacks sucked. Like that's just making it as easy as possible.
That's your verified opinion?
Yes, this is my verified opinion that the targets were there, the quarterbacks were bad. Demaryius Thomas is not the same player that he has been throughout his career. He is aging. He is not as dominant athletically, but he's a contested catch beast. He is figuring out how to play in the NFL with this aged wide receiver body, even though he's not ancient in terms of a wide receiver age.
Do you believe that Cortland Sutton can threaten the value of Demaryius Thomas this year, wide receiver rookie for the Broncos?
I do think so. He's been on the field as a starter in training camp, and he'll in 3 wide. He's on the field. Demaryius Thomas, if you compare his game speed from 2016 to 2017, there's a noticeable dip for him when, so as he's getting older, he is slowing down. I agree completely. He can box a guy out and contested catch the heck out of a ton of targets. So I'm not like anti Demaryius Thomas.
No,
but
that's why
I
he's
do
at 16.
think I do think, when we bring up the names like Trevor Siemian and Brock Osweiler, like,
Paxton,
garbage.
Paxton Lynch. Third string quarterback Paxton Lynch.
Yes, but when we bring those names
he's really
up,
bad. He's bad. John Elway made a mistake with Paxton Lynch.
John Elway's made a lot of mistakes.
Yes, but he's also made some really good calls. So you take the good with the bad. He got Peyton Manning.
Yeah,
but my point is this: when you say those names, it taints the picture that it's 100% on them because they're terrible. But you forget those were the same quarterbacks he played with the year before when he was fine. It's Trevor Siemian
but so was Sanders. And Sanders is one of those guys where –
but Sanders was super injured all last year.
My point is simply the top two wide receivers for the Denver Broncos were both historically great. Demaryius Thomas was coming off of 5 straight seasons of 90 receptions, 1,000-plus yards. Emmanuel Sanders has been an absolute monster, and both of them still got targets, but were very, very inefficient.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up Sanders because if I'm looking at a Denver Broncos wide receiver to own, I would rather have Sanders in the 7th.
That's fair.
To pair with, instead of Demaryius Thomas, the guy he's going right next to is Amari Cooper. Give me Amari Cooper and Emmanuel Sanders as opposed to Demaryius Thomas and Marquise Goodwin, who's going right next to Emmanuel Sanders.
All right, 17 is Marvin Jones, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Last year, a banner year for Marvin Jones. I believe number 9 in fantasy finish. A very consistent year, 50% of his games as a wide receiver 1 or 2. However, when I've been asked this question of a player that you might regret drafting this year, I've been answering Marvin Jones. His season was littered with long jump ball touchdowns from Matthew Stafford. He was super efficient. He had 9 touchdowns on how many catches? 61 catches. I checked this out. 94% of wide receiver ones over the last 10 years have needed at least 110 targets to finish in that top 12. He only had 107 targets last year. I don't think that Kenny Golladay is the greatest thing that's ever happened to Detroit, but he is going to be back in the mix. Marvin Jones's totals, his catch totals, are in that Alshon Jeffery-esque type, 60 receptions. He has to have 9 touchdowns to be great, and I don't want to draft him and expect him to repeat last year's banner year. I think that was the ceiling for Marvin Jones, therefore I'm going another direction.
Yeah, and not only touchdowns. We've talked a lot about the touchdown regression in the sense that, you look back at the last couple of years, he's had over 100 targets, 103, 107, and the touchdowns just went 4.49. That's great. But also look at the yards per reception.
Yeah.
He led the 18 yards a reception. That's an outlier season. Players don't just continually average 18 yards a reception unless they're in the Hall of Fame. His career average is 14 yards a reception, and
he came down with the long balls last year, and I don't want to take anything away from him.
He has been tearing up camp. Like the beat reporters are saying, Marvin Jones is torching people and looks great. So, is there a chance he's just upgraded? He's leveled up, and he's now the go-to guy for Stafford. I mean, we love Stafford here.
I think Marvin Jones is fine. I don't expect him to finish the season the way he finished it last year. I mean, I have him ranked at 20. I have Golden Tate ahead of him. So I don't think that that's a common opinion necessarily to have Golden Tate ahead. You guys both have Marvin Jones just ahead of Tate.
Golden Tate is going around ahead on fantasy football calculator.
Okay. So then you guys are more in the Jones camp?
I just see him so close.
Yeah, I see them back to back essentially. When I look at these guys, I can flip a coin. So I'll always take the guy around later if that's the situation.
If it's heads up Lions, I'll take Marvin Jones.
Well, it is heads up Lion. Number 18 is Golden Tate.
Yep, I'll take Marvin Jones.
So last year, 122 targets for Golden Tate, led the league in yards after the catch. He's a yak master, 613 of them, 92 receptions, 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. The Lions, they have a schedule to open the year that seems pretty favorable to me. Golden Tate is going around ahead, however, so yeah, that's tough. That's a tough decision between those two guys. It's kind of who Matthew Stafford locks in on any given week and who can pull in the touchdowns. Tate's not generally going to give you a monster.
He does not
week.
boom.
He does not boom.
Yeah.
But he's very consistent. Like, would you feel comfortable with Golden Tate as your wide receiver 2?
Yes, very.
2, yeah.
He's never had a fantasy finish above 13, which, by the way, 13 was back in 2014. So the ceiling isn't there for Golden Tate, but as a possession receiver, you know, if you end up with him, if he bursts into 7 or 8, 9 touchdowns somehow, you're going to have a monster year from Golden Tate.
Oh, yes. I'm not expecting him to get up to the 8 touchdown, but he's a 90-plus reception guy, so he's very safe for PPR at the least.
All right, let's talk about Tyreek the Freak at number 19. Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs wideout, breakout season last year, finished the 8th best fantasy wide receiver, averaged 78.9 receiving yards per game, which was 6th most in the league. And it was a great season for Tyreek Hill. I think he met or exceeded expectations both for fantasy owners.
I would say he exceeded them.
Yeah, big
or
time.
His head coach and that offense. So what do you guys see from Tyreek Hill this year?
I see a slight dip for him. I mean, last year you've got him and Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt. You know, the trifecta of weapons. There wasn't really, you know, Albert Wilson or Chris Conley. Like these guys
weren't involved.
These guys aren't getting in his way. And even with that situation, you know, he only had 100 total targets. On that, he caught 71% of passes, which is, you know, a great number. But this year with Sammy Watkins in town, look, Tyreek Hill can take any pass, a screen pass. He's so fast, so electric. He can take it to the house, and he will have those big games because of that.
It takes one throw.
Yeah, exactly. It takes one handoff even. But I think his target total will not rise. It could stay the same around 100. But what he did, his efficiency on those 100 targets is not going to be repeated year after year. I think that was the most efficient he will be on that amount of targets. So if he stays the same, he will dip on targets. If the target total goes down and the efficiency goes down, I think, you know, you could be really sad. When I look at the ADP on wide receivers, the one guy that I know I'm just never going to draft at where he's going is Tyreek Hill.
Keep, trade, cut, Tyreek Hill, Jarvis Landry, Amari Cooper.
I'm going to keep Cooper.
I'm going to trade
Tyreek Hill based on his ADP. People still loving him.
I mean, perhaps you've heard of this character, perhaps you've not, but in the cartoon anime world, there's a fella named One Punch Man.
Oh, you know I've heard of him.
Tyreek Hill is One Touch Man.
Oh,
because he just takes the one touch, but those touches were not coming in the red zone. 4 red zone targets this past year. Sammy Watkins, who was a red zone monster last year for the Rams, has been added to the team. Travis Kelce, red zone monster. All of Tyreek Hill's touchdowns came from 30 yards or further away because Alex Smith was elite in the deep ball. Can Patrick Mahomes, in his first year starting as quarterback, equal those numbers or that efficiency that Alex Smith had this past season? That's why Tyreek Hill is not a guy that I really want to draft, but at the same time, it's hard to doubt Tyreek Hill after these first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
From a strategy perspective, I don't want to put Tyreek Hill on my roster and then Marvin Jones on my roster together.
Agreed.
Like, that's the kind of assembly that I don't desire.
That's
I might win a week.
You're baking a cake.
Yeah. Oh man. It's not dirty.
And then no, it's not dirty, but you're just adding the same ingredient over and over.
Oh yeah.
You can't have a cake of frosting and then put frosting on it.
Exactly.
Well,
that's just frosting.
Wow.
It's not a cake.
That was a bad ingredient example because I think I'm down with
All
that.
right, fine. You've put salt.
Okay.
Oh, you put salt on something. You say, you know what this salt needs? More salt.
I agree.
You know what that gives you? A heart attack.
That's right. Or a freak out.
Heart health, people.
20 and 21. 20 and 21 on our consensus wide receiver rankings. JuJu Smith-Schuster, Allen Robinson. Jason, you have JuJu at 16. Mike, you got Allen Robinson at 16.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the pros and cons of these 2 players as we march down this list.
One of them had 100% catch rate last year. My guy, Allen Robinson, at wide receiver 16, caught one of his targets.
That went into your thought process, huh?
Yes, that's the analysis.
It has
you get
been a
with this
couple
guy.
years since he's had a great season.
Yes.
He had that number 6 overall season with Bortles in 2015. In 2016, it was a disappointment. He did play all 16 games, but he's the 25th best receiver.
Yeah.
So I don't think people know what to expect or know whether to buy in on Allen Robinson with Mitch Trubisky in Chicago.
Mitch Trubisky is the thing that scares me. I mean, more than Allen Robinson's health. Allen Robinson is healthy enough, and I think he's a good enough wide receiver, and we know that he's the number 1 wide receiver for the Bears. Those all are better than JuJu, right? He's had a better season than JuJu. He's the clear-cut number 1 guy, but is Mitchell Trubisky good enough? And I have a hard time believing it.
Many would say is Blake Bortles good enough?
Sure.
I mean,
I would say yes.
But coming into the offseason, there was legitimate questions of, will Blake Bortles actually be starting for the Jaguars in 2018? And
I cannot confirm or deny that there was doubt relating Blake Bortles being a starting quarterback.
Yes.
It wasn't just you. Those other people.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the pros and cons right there of Allen Robinson. Great wide receiver, the clear-cut number 1 for a team that should take a step forward. Do you want the number 1 on last year's Rams, that took that step forward when they changed to an offensive-minded coach? That's what's happening in Chicago. So will Trubisky do the Jared Goff step forward?
Do the Goff.
Do the Goff. do the Goff. So I lean that
everybody do the Goff.
That Trubisky will not take the same type of step forward.
Goff to the left,
and
Goff to the right,
and JuJu
Goff and out of sight.
Oof,
sorry, Jason.
So Goffrey. JuJu is the guy that if you haven't been listening the whole offseason, I've been extremely high on him, but it scares the living heck out of me because
he went out in preseason week 1 and tried to give you some comfort. He just went out and Randy Moss somebody and then ran it down the sideline for a 71-yard touchdown and then took the rest of the game off.
It won't matter to me until he's doing it in the regular season because everything that I usually like this is a heart over head pick because I believe in JuJu, I believe in the talent, I like the Steelers. But when I usually stat guys out and I'm looking at the math and the history and the numbers and all that, it says that JuJu should regress this season.
Yes.
But
is this right, Brooks? Number 1 in the league in average yards per target?
Yeah.
11.6 yards per target. That's the best out of 69 qualifying receivers. That is 917 yards on 79 targets.
That's a perfect example of why he should regress.
And JuJu has the talent to exceed and be a great fantasy wide receiver, but he's the 3rd target at best on his team behind Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell.
But let's talk about Antonio Brown. We didn't even talk about that news yesterday. He limped off in practice.
Because he was fine.
But he had,
that's a second time, though.
Yeah, and
Antonio.
Last season, he ended the year injured. I mean, he's been a little bit banged up. So JuJu's opportunity, everything changes if Antonio Brown misses a game.
Yes.
And he's on such a better offense than what we've seen from Chicago. I prefer JuJu over Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I do as well.
22, it's Tyreek Hill's new best friend, Sammy Watkins,
or
the Kansas
nemesis.
City Chiefs. They're on the same team, Mike. It's like you and Jason.
Yeah, my nemesis.
So wait, what? I gave you
so
actually,
much kind words. Jason was my only nemesis because we were the only ones in the verified club. But now you're a nemesis too, Mike. But Sammy at 22, Alshon at 23, Jarvis at 24. I have sincerely buried Alshon. I'm surprised he stayed around our consensus rankings, Mike. I have him at 31.
Clearly with all the news of the pup concerns and everything, I got to move him
We've
down.
talked a lot about him already, so let's focus on talking through Watkins and Jarvis Landry. Watkins, I have him at 21, Jason 22, Mike 24. We all buy into the potential breakout of Watkins. We've got a My Guy show next week. He may make an appearance.
Ooh, right? Isn't it Monday? Is that correct, Brooks?
Yes, sir.
Whew. Tune in.
You got any My Guys this year, Brooks, that you want to debut right now? Do you have anybody that you're like
right now
all in on? Sure.
On the spot. Spotlight's
you're not
on.
Jamal Williams.
Okay.
All right.
Packers running back.
Yeah.
Great value.
All right. We will never be going back to Brooks for his picks.
I actually think that was a great pick, Brooks.
It is. Yeah,
it's interesting.
All you Aaron Jonesers.
Yeah. That's true. We are. But he's suspended, so I'm guessing Aaron Jones' numbers week 1 and 2 are going to be pretty piss poor.
Yes.
Great pick, Brooks.
All right, so Sammy Watkins last year we've talked about him before. He only had 70 targets. He turned that into at least, the only silver lining of last season was really the 8 touchdowns, right? Only 39 receptions. He's no longer a Los Angeles Ram. He heads to Kansas City on a big contract. It's all about rapport with Pat Mahomes, what he can do with Andy Reid. There's been reports of Sammy Watkins moving all around the offense. They want to use him more to his strengths, but you need a step forward for Sammy Watkins. You can't have what you had last year and be happy.
Well, the nice thing about his situation, right, is that he's not going to a new team where he's got to break in on the rapport of quarterback and wide receiver. Tyreek Hill was there, but Tyreek Hill did not have a rapport with Pat Mahomes. Even when Pat Mahomes got in the final week of the season, Tyreek Hill was sitting out that. Pat played with the backups, as he did in practice and through the year. So coming into training camp, something Sammy Watkins did not get last year. If you remember, he was traded right before, it was in the preseason. To the Rams. So now Sammy goes to the Chiefs, and you have a full training camp where Pat Mahomes is figuring out who's his guy, Tyreek Hill or Sammy Watkins
or
Travis
both,
Kelce or both. And so I have Tyreek Hill ahead in my rankings, I believe, but they are. If Sammy Watkins outproduces him, there's no. I mean, he could absolutely. Sammy Watkins' ceiling is a clear-cut wide receiver 1. Like if he becomes the primary target in that offense, I think his talent could be a top 10 wide receiver.
It's many moons ago, but in 2013, Sammy Watkins played 13 games and turned that into 60 receptions, almost 1,050 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He was dominant for the second half of the season with Tyrod Taylor as his quarterback.
Hey, Brooks, do you ever sit around and say things like, man, I'm so glad Andy exists? Do you ever think that?
Almost every day.
Almost every day. I'm sitting here right now as we talk about our last player on the show before our mailbag section, and I say to myself, thank goodness I exist. Thank goodness I exist, because we wouldn't be talking about Jarvis Landry right now on this show if I didn't exist. Because
that's a fair point.
The trash rankings from my cohorts would have distorted the perception of Jarvis Landry so vastly that he wouldn't have been talked about even if this show went on another hour. Jarvis comes in at 24 in our consensus, but Jason has him at 38. I've got him at 14. That is a monstrous gap. That is the type of gap in which we often hold court over. And, Mike, you got him at 31. I'm not proud of you either.
I will say this. I wanted to see another preseason week of Jarvis Landry before I made any massive altercations. I've been very.
Isn't his entire career enough?
No, it's not for what I still perceive to be a lower volume passing offense with Taylor as the quarterback, at least for the beginning portion of the season. But the way they were utilizing him, there was a very short sample size, of course.
And there's no Josh Gordon right now.
Of course. So all of those things will factor in. I do have him at 31, but he's going to move up in my projections. I'm doing a bit of overhauling today.
I am all in on Jarvis Landry.
I am not all in. I believe rising.
I believe it's going to be a very similar scenario in Cleveland that it was in Miami. He's going to soak up targets like a sponge.
Yeah.
And so do I think he's going to finish the 7th best like he did last year? No. But I put him exactly where he was in 2015 and 16, which is basically just not giving him the 9 touchdowns and saying he was the 13th best. He was the 14th best. I just don't understand how Jarvis Landry is too talented to finish outside the top 20. It's an impossibility.
Yeah, I don't think it's an impossibility based on touchdowns and offense. If Cleveland is not a quality offense and they're not scoring a lot of points, and Jarvis ends up with 3 touchdowns, then that could happen. What we're seeing right now is no Josh Gordon and preseason football plus Hard Knocks. You'll get that Hard Knocks heart bump when you watch. And I will admit I have Jarvis Landry probably too low right now. But I have to hold off for a little bit, and it's really hard to watch the preseason games and see that Jarvis Landry is the clear-cut number one and not think that's what's going to happen. But what's going to change when Josh Gordon is actually there? So, I have him with 124 targets, not a bad number. I just don't have him scoring a lot of touchdowns. I think that's the largest difference in the rankings.
Do you consider the Dolphins to have been the offense of – I mean, you said the scenario where the Browns aren't a very good offense. The Dolphins
but there's a huge
not been a good offense in the last 3 years.
But the Dolphins also threw to the wide receiver a higher percentage of their passes than any other team. 66% of their passes last year went to the wide receiver position. Meanwhile, Cleveland last year was at 52%. That's a large amount of targets.
Yeah, and Cleveland's entire offense is reworked.
Yeah, it's entirely different. It's Todd Haley, but a new quarterback, new pieces. And in my opinion, a lower volume quarterback because he runs. He
doesn't talk as loud.
Then that doesn't bother me. But it's the fact that
that was the lower volume.
Oh, I got you. I thought there was something I missed on Hard Knocks. But as Hugh Jackson was quick to point out from his seat at the head of the table, this is Hugh Jackson's team, and he will run it how Hugh Jackson sees fit. And he is going to bump heads with Todd Haley. We'll see who wins out.
I don't think that the Dolphins were a better offense last year than the Browns will be this year necessarily, but it is about just the target share. 27% of the targets went to Jarvis Landry. Will that happen here with Duke Johnson and Josh Gordon and legitimate weapons? It might.
Yeah, I've
got him at 25% target share this year, so it's not too far off.
And I'm just making for an entertaining debate here. I understand that there are risks. I have chosen now over the course of the offseason to completely disintegrate them and believe in the talent and ability of Jarvis Landry. I think you're going to see the same thing from him. Let's jump into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
Verified, yeah! If you have a question for the Fantasy Footballers, go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Click the Submit a Question button or dial our voicemail hotline, 302-464-TFFB. Going to jump into a voicemail to kick it off.
Hey, Ballers. This is Daniel from Arkansas. First of all, congratulations to Mike for no longer being a man of the people. Quick question for you. Is it ever okay to draft a player that you don't like with the sole purpose of trading him away? Thanks. Bye.
No. Wow, he got that question in this morning.
Yeah.
Well, way to be current. And I will say, unless I am looking my opponent in the eye saying, I'm going to draft this player and trade him immediately to you, do we have a deal, a full handshake agreement, then no, I am not going to do this and hope that I can trade that player.
No, never. I think that when you start in fantasy, you're always tempted to do that. I'm going to draft these 3 quarterbacks because people are dumb, and then I'll trade one of them, or I'm going to hoard the defenses, or this guy loves the Chargers. I'm going to draft Keenan Allen, and then he'll pay up for him. Build your best team. Build the team that you think is best, not the team that you think someone else thinks would be great.
I agree with that mostly, but I actually think this applies fine in the first couple rounds. If there's a player with such prominent value and you just don't like him, I still think you take Zeke. Right? You might not like Zeke. I still think you can take him at that value and then flip him. That's the situation. In the first or second round, you might not like him as much.
If you're at like a tier break and he's the last one in that tier.
I'm all aboard what you guys are saying. If it's like the 7th round and you're like, I'm just going to draft Packers because I'm in Wisconsin, so I'm going to draft all the Packers and trade them all away. That's stupid. You're not building your team. But if you're sitting there at a tier break, I do see a scenario where I'm going, boy, the value of a player like Zeke in this league over dropping to – maybe it's Kamara, right? Like you're like, man, Zeke has twice the trade value in this league than Kamara. Maybe I take him. Yeah. Because you're not hurting yourself. You can still play that player. You just don't like him.
Yeah, I just don't think in the early rounds. I don't think that
if the trades fall through, you still got a great player.
I don't know that there's
want him.
I guess it depends on what you're saying like means. I think it's a matter of saying like you just don't want that guy in your team, but he's still going to produce. Like I don't really like Zeke like everybody else likes Zeke, but I see the value of drafting him. And when I'm sitting at the top of our keeper league draft, there's part of me that says I need to take him because
there's part of you that understands that Zeke is the better pick.
That's what you think?
Yes,
That's
because
what
he'll
you
be the
think?
better fantasy player.
Yeah, well,
It's in there.
I don't
It's
know.
in there somewhere.
It's in the back of their mind. You're a smart guy.
David in New Orleans. In a full PPR, Jordan Howard for a 14th or Adam Thielen for a 9th? Who would you rather keep? It's a full PPR.
Full PPR.
Thielen for a 9th or Howard for a 14th. I am taking Howard.
PPR.
Yeah, that means point per reception.
Yeah, which is not Jordan Howard's strength and is Adam Thielen's strength. But at the 14th round to get a solid running back, look, you're not going to go wrong here. Yeah, I would love to keep either one of them, but I lean Jordan Howard as well.
Yeah, I'll take Howard.
All right, let's jump into another voicemail.
Hey, Fantasy Football, this is Logan from New York. I just want to say I love the show, and I got a quick question about league depth versus bench size. Wondering if you add more or less bench spots when you add more or less people in the league in order to make the waiver wire more competitive. Debating between a 10 and 12 man league and 5 to 6 bench spots plus an IR. Love to hear your input on that. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, do you want like you said, if let's say you've got a 10-man 10 team league and you're debating between 5 and 6 roster spots, it's do the math on how many total players there would be and where the cutoffs would be for waivers. If you want waivers to be a little bit more difficult, people are going to go and really bid up this guy, which I think is more fun than a deeper bench is good for that. If you want more people on the waivers where you say, I want to be able to pick guys up off of waivers every week and have it be a little easier, then you go smaller benches. But I don't think there's a right or wrong number.
Steven in Summers, Connecticut says, hello, new to the show, absolutely love it. It's my new go-to for fantasy news and wisdom.
Steven.
Mine too.
With there being such a large depth at the quarterback position, at what round would you suggest targeting my first, second, and third quarterback? By the way, 2-quarterback league. Obviously, I need to roster a third quarterback to cover bye weeks, ? What do you think?
Yes,
roster size is 18 people, 2-quarterback league.
For me, it's not about round. It's about getting the value, and I am even in a 2-quarterback league, I'm still going to focus on my running backs or my wide receivers in those first early rounds, and then maybe around the third round at quarterback is there that I just can't pass on. But it's normally around that 4 or 5 range where, okay, the top end talent is gone, that middle range guys, the guys that I am perfectly fine with, grabbing 3 of those guys that I pick their matchups. That's the way I play, even in 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I like that. I don't have a problem. I know, Andy, you're usually 1 quarterback early, 1 quarterback late. I like basically doing the same thing. The tiers. There's players in certain tiers that I'm going to be targeting. I'm going to be targeting Matthew Stafford, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers. I'm going to be targeting Jameis Winston for my third, right? Because he's not going to start the year. He's going to drop, and he'll be valuable as a third quarterback. It's not a round. That's why we talk about the Ultimate Draft Kit, about tier-based drafting. You look at which players are kind of grouped together, and you say, there's so many of these guys left. I don't need to draft one yet. Let's go to the next round. Let's go to the next round. Or, oh my gosh, my league has been drafting these guys high. I'm going to run out of this tier of quarterback that I want to get. I'm going right now in round 2.
Well, that's how we put the tiers in the cheat sheet, so you're ready on game day.
And just let me list off some quarterbacks here who are considered basically close to undrafted in single quarterback leagues, which means they'll be available a bit later in 2 quarterback. Tyrod Taylor, Jameis Winston, Blake Bortles.
Ooh, Blake the Snake.
Case Keenum.
Alex Smith.
These are very usable quarterbacks, and they're not even – people don't want them in single quarterback leagues. So you can still wait while everyone is spending early picks and grab the elite running backs and wide receivers.
Agreed.
Speaking of tiers, Mike, did you shed a few when you woke up and saw that little check mark?
Silently. I didn't want to wake up the family.
He shed blue
Right.
tears.
Did you go in?
Yeah, right.
You didn't wake
He got the dinner bell out and ran through the house.
No, I did not. I did not, but once everyone was awake, I broke the news to my wife, and she was also probably more excited than people should be for something as dumb as a Twitter
Yeah, well,
verification.
you've had a lot of long nights.
Yes.
A lot of nights in the corner.
She's like, they
in the
can't
dark.
make fun of you anymore.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll find something else. Just a reminder, after a long offseason, FanDuel is ready and has many more ways to play and more ways to win. New options with playing for playing with your friends, because the only thing better than winning some cash is winning your friends' cash. Better yet, you got them preseason contests, Mike. They're up and running up to week 1 of the NFL, and you can sign up at FanDuel.com/footballers, and you get a $10 bonus when you make your first deposit. Age and state restrictions apply. Thank you. Oh, Foot Clan, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the show. We appreciate it.
Hey, Foot Clan, I'm going to be doing a live best ball draft today. If you want in on that, you better follow us on Twitter. Get that account ready, draft.com/ballers.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.